Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet.
Bill Maher just torched AOC and the hard left for what he sees as a headlong dive straight into socialism. And wow, the backlash came in hot. The sharp-tongued host has been ringing alarm bells about Zoran Mandani from the second the guy announced his run for New York mayor. Now that Mandani has actually clinched it, Maher watches AOC ride that socialist surge, and he's livid. Strap in, people. This clash is gearing up to explode in spectacular fashion today.
Would say get to know him, and once you get into a room with him, kick the tires yourself and make your own assessment instead of just kind of making assessments from what you may see on television. Something that I share, that I feel like I share with Zoran, is that the way sometimes people are painted in media doesn't always align with who we really are as individuals. And so I think that when people get to know him as a person, when people get to know us as real people.
So now AOC is snapping back at critics like Bill Maher, after he warned that Zoran Mandani and his ultra-left agenda won't just sink New York, but could derail the Democrats' entire 2028 strategy. Maher and others argue that elevating an openly socialist figure is basically political Russian roulette. It pushes moderates away, energizes opponents, and hands them a gift-wrapped attack line on a silver platter. But AOC's response? She says people should actually learn who Mandani is before judging him. And honestly, the irony is wild. This is the same AOC who never offered that same open-mindedness to Donald Trump or any conservative candidate. Her sudden call for patience and understanding feels a lot more like selective compassion than genuine principle. And that's exactly why her defense is raising eyebrows across the aisle. But then Maher fired back, doubling down on his warning and making it clear he thinks Democrats are playing with fire.
That stuff that happened before their appearance on the planet didn't really happen, but it did. We've run this experiment many times, and the results are always obvious. Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes.
Maher is blasting the warning sirens yet again, only this time, he's swinging with absolutely zero restraint. He says the left is practically begging for an electoral collapse by tying their future to Mandani and his proudly socialist platform. Maher. This isn't bold leadership. It's political self-destruction. He argues that by elevating candidates who push fringe ideological experiments, Democrats are risking everything: their credibility, their connection to voters, and their national momentum. Instead of widening the tent, Maher says they're shrinking it. They're driving away moderates and independents who want practical solutions, not ideological crusades or utopian experiments. In his view, the left is steering full speed into a catastrophe of its own making, and he's practically begging them to snap out of it before the damage becomes irreversible. But did they listen? Not at all.
Is taking place when we have a corrupt campaign finance system which allows billionaires in both political parties to select the candidates they want and to buy elections.
It's wild how figures like Bernie Sanders keep insisting America would flourish under socialist policies, even though they personally cashed in big time on capitalism. These are people whose careers, book deals, speaking gigs, and public influence were all built by the very system they now claim is beyond saving. And deep down, they know neither they nor their empires would survive 5 minutes under the brand of socialism they promote. Yet they keep pushing the narrative as if they'd somehow be exempt from the fallout. That's the real kicker, calling for sweeping redistribution while enjoying the wealth, freedom, and opportunity only capitalism could have given them. It's ideological purity preached from an incredibly comfortable seat.
Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening.
Ma is quick to remind New Yorkers and AOC that the city can't just magically reinvent socialism like it's a shiny new product launch. History is stacked with countries and states that tried the same ideological experiments, only to collapse under cold economic reality. Ma argues New York won't suddenly become the miracle exception to a long track record of failure, no matter how aggressively its leaders try to rebrand the ideology. And here's the twist. AOC recently claimed that New York is the rule, not the exception. If that's true, Ma warns, then people better buckle up, because if the rule is failed socialist policy, the ending won't be prosperity. It'll be a completely predictable, completely avoidable collapse.
Make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar. Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week.
Ma then shifted his focus to Bernie Sanders, zeroing in on a socialist policy the senator once proudly implemented in Vermont. A policy that spectacularly unraveled the moment it was put into action. This is the pattern Ma loves exposing. On paper, these ideas shine with moral clarity and poetic ambition, but reality exposes every flaw. That's when the cracks widen, the costs explode, and idealism smashes headfirst into the hard math of economics. Ma stressed that Sanders' Vermont experiment didn't just stumble. It collapsed in plain sight, like a house of cards folding under the slightest pressure. Noble intentions couldn't substitute for functional governance. Socialist policies, he argues, promise equality and fairness, but often deliver shortages, inefficiency, and financial chaos when scaled up. And Vermont wasn't some hostile proving ground. Politically and socially, it had every advantage to make such an experiment work. Yet even there, the system buckled under its own weight. To Maher, this remains the cautionary tale the left refuses to acknowledge, even as they push to replicate the same failed blueprint nationwide.
Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet.
The View usually follows a single narrative because most of the hosts share the same stance. This time, even the other hosts seemed fed up with Sunny Hostin, and surprisingly, the audience started applauding her awkwardness, almost as if they were siding against the hosts.
He's like a nice guy, and I congratulate him on an extraordinary political achievement. But before the whole left side of the country catches socialism fever, let's listen to the other big winner in last Tuesday's election, Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, who, before the 24 election, said things like, if the party didn't shift to the center, we will get torn apart. And we need to never use the word socialist or socialism ever again. Well, she was right, but they didn't listen. Typical, am I right, ladies?
Abigail Spanberger had already issued warnings, yet the DNC is still moving towards socialist-style policies. The party's direction is being decided not by moderates or everyday Democrats, but by a small, very loud woke faction. Leadership's silence is effectively giving approval. Spanberger wanted the party to be voter-friendly, but her advice was ignored. And now this extremism could cost Democrats both elections and voter trust.
Has a clear choice here, very clear. One wing is saying don't ever use the word socialist again, and one is saying,
I am a democratic socialist.
Clear, huh? So how do we decide who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won in districts Trump also won, all moderates. This isn't rocket science. All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 2024, and they all came up with the same message: move to the center. Even the New York Times.
The DNC needs to return to the center and ditch the woke theatrics dragging the party down. Doubling down on socialist policies alienates moderates and independents, the very voters who decide elections. Competence, balance, and common sense, not fringe ideology, are what Americans want. Until the DNC gets that, defeat is inevitable.
Quiet quitting capitalism and texting socialism that they're down to. Thing is, socialism will f you. Because socialism, to put it simply, just doesn't work and has never worked. Like Kevin Federline.
The DNC stands at a crossroads. Critics like Maher warn that embracing socialism isn't bold, it's politically reckless. Extremes like AOC and Bernie push ideology over reality, alienating moderates and independents. To survive upcoming elections, the party must return to pragmatism, focus on solutions that resonate with everyday Americans, and stop letting fringe voices define its identity.